So I'd like to spend the next 15-20 minutes going through Dell's Data Center Convergence 2.0 capability and how that helps our customers optimize their infrastructure in the data center, both for their current workloads, also for the new and evolving workloads in areas such as cloud and big data. And for that reason, this presentation is called Future Ready Data Center. Now, I think it's probably worthwhile just spending a couple of minutes before we get into the meat of the subject to just make sure that we've all got the same understanding of some of the buzzwords that are freely flowing in the industry right now. Because typically if you get a group of 10 or 20 people and ask them to define terms such as cloud, big data, software defined, convergence, quite often you get different answers. So I'm going to share with you our point of view of these terms, so we're all at a kind of common engineering level as we go through the presentation. If we could start with convergence. If we look at a classic, typical data center infrastructure, we have networking, IP networking at the front end, we have servers, and then we have a storage fabric. And that storage fabric itself typically is broken down into fiber channel switching, storage processors, and then the underlying disk arrays. So that is what you find sitting behind most applications and in most data centers today. So physical convergence in the data center means taking those disparate tasks of server, storage, and networking, and rather than running them on discrete pieces of hardware for those specific tasks, we put them all together in the same chassis. So in this instance, the example I'm showing here is a Dell Vertex system. And in the Dell Vertex system, we can put 4 compute nodes, we can put up to 25 disks, and then around the back, we can put a variety of different networking options. And what that means is that we can provide all of that data center infrastructure in a single chassis, reducing in cabling, reducing in systems management, and with a reduction in power, fundamentally simplifying the infrastructure. Now, at Dell, uniquely, we do this for the Vertex solution, which is, if you like, a small converged appliance that can go under the desk, ideal for remote branch offices and other distributed locations. We also have our FX2 range, which allows you to do consolidation within rack at a rack level. And finally, we've got the M1000E, which is our big blade chassis converged infrastructure. So you can kind of think of these as small, medium, and large. And this is a kind of key unique differentiator for Dell, because right now our key competitors, people like Cisco, HP, are really only offering convergence at the, if you like, the large level with blades without these other options. It would be a bit like going into a store to buy some clothes and the only size is being available being extra, extra large, which is great as long as you don't want medium or small. So that's physical data center convergence where Dell has got clear global leadership. And then on top of that, we add software data center convergence. And that is where individual tasks that again typically would require specific hardware, such as networking switches, such as storage arrays, are actually virtualized and run in software on industry standard server technology. And again, this is an area where Dell has got some significant advantage because our engineers have gone out and created engineered solutions using all of the industry-leading software-defined technologies that are available in the market today, including technologies, really cutting-edge technologies such as Nutanix, such as CPS from Microsoft, technologies actually that are only available today on Dell hardware. So in terms of software-defined, the networking device becomes software-defined networking. The storage devices become software-defined storage. And we have this kind of generic term for software-defined anything, which has the wonderful acronym SDX. And you put all of that together and you get the software-defined data center. So putting those kind of layers together, you'll see that physical convergence, physically converged infrastructure is an area where Dell has got a huge global leadership position. On top of that, you layer software-defined data center capabilities, again, through the breadth and the depth of the partnerships and the engineered solutions we've created. We have leadership here, and these in turn provide the ideal platform to run tasks such as workloads, such as private and public cloud and big data, and I shall talk a little bit more about those in a few minutes. So I just thought it was kind of important to set out what these terms mean, because that's going to be important as I go through the rest of this presentation. So, future-ready enterprise, data center convergence 2.0. So if we take a step back and just look at what's happening in the IT industry, or for that matter in the world at large right now, change has become the new constant. Moreover, the rate of change itself is changing. It's accelerating. There is more and more data being created every single day, structured data and unstructured data. That data is being created by more and more users, and those users themselves are more and more diverse, and they're using more and more diverse and different and mobile platforms as a great example. All of this creates further risk in terms of the impact on IT, and perhaps the most worrying thing of all from an IT professional's perspective is that they have to accommodate all of this growth, all of this change, all of this risk, whilst actually their IT budgets are at best kind of staying the same, and many instances are declining. So this, in many instances, is the perfect storm. And it's worthwhile, putting oneself in the position of a CIO or a senior IT leader, because they're getting pulled every which way. They're being asked increasingly to spend more and more time not thinking about IT, but focused on business priorities. And that's because IT itself has gone from being a kind of back office enabler for most organizations to being a key part of the front office, the go-to-market, the cost reduction programs, the efficiency programs within the operations in which they represent. So, but in addition to these business priorities, back in the kind of, if you like, the engine room of IT, there's a further bifurcation. Traditional IT priorities, otherwise known as keeping the lights on, patching, managing, maintaining, supporting, upgrading of technology, absolutely has to continue as it has done for many, many years. But in parallel, and going back to some of those other themes and topics, there is an emergence, a rapid emergence of new paradigms, new workloads, be it cloud, be it big data, be it mobility, and all of that our IT professionals have to deal with as well. So they're kind of pulled every which way, to the extent that you can view where we are right now as at a major intersection of IT, new and old. And the challenge is for the organization, for the IT organization, and you can summarize it as they have to be able to go straight on, turn left, turn right, do all of that at the same time, and do it with less money. And moreover, they need to do all of that without getting stuck in a particular lane. Perhaps some of the vendors out there, given half a chance, would steer a customer to stay in one particular lane, which is the direction they want to take them. And the customer may find themselves up at the end of the journey, not necessarily ending up where they wanted to be. So the great thing is, with Dell Data Center Convergence 2.0, we can help our customers navigate through this intersection and without locking them down into any particular lane. And to answer the question, well, how do we do that? It's worth taking a step back and say, how did we get into this mess? How did we come as an IT industry, how did we come to this intersection? So I'm going to take a step back in time and think about a world 5-10 years ago, which doesn't sound like a long time, but in IT terms, 5-10 years is potentially quite a long time. And it's staggering to think that 5-10 years ago, virtualization, certainly in terms of mainstream x86 workloads, virtualization just wasn't there. We had the classic one application equals one server deployment. And all of those servers would, to some extent, share a storage and a networking fabric. But one thing was also true is it doesn't matter whether it was the servers, the storage, or the networking, that server, storage, and networking platform typically was of a kind of proprietary and expensive nature. So we saw very expensive blades from the kind of leading blade manufacturers at the time. We saw expensive storage from the big, expensive SAN manufacturers of the time, and big, expensive networking capabilities from Cisco, bluntly, because they were very much the dominant player in the networking market at that point in time. So this was a kind of pretty costly place to be. And if we map that onto a kind of cost model that looks at, on one hand, acquisition cost, purchase cost, or CapEx on the left to right axis, and we look at operational costs running north-south, we find that those legacy pre-virtualized workloads were both expensive to buy and expensive to manage, maintain, and run. So a kind of double whammy. Really not a good place to be. So then comes virtualization. And virtualization was fantastic because that enabled us to put multiple workloads onto a shared infrastructure, dramatically reducing our runtime costs. Now, there is a kind of catch here, and the catch is that when we went into the virtualized world, many organizations took with them on that journey the same vendors that they'd been using in that old pre-virtualized legacy world. So we saw the benefits of virtualization in terms of the operational efficiencies, but we saw people doing virtualization on the same proprietary or semi-proprietary servers and blades that they had before, doing virtualization on those same big high-end SAN systems that frankly in many instances were overkill for this new environment, and again the same global dominance of Cisco throughout the whole of the networking layer. So the net result was we had operational savings, we continued to spend frankly far too much money on the underlying infrastructure. And moreover, those hardware vendors for servers and storage and networking kind of wasted no time post-virtualization to start to put back in their own special sauce, their own special management fabrics, their own orchestration tooling, that actually, before too long, we found ourselves kind of almost to some extent back where we started, where we had heavily virtualized systems, we had converged systems, but convergence at a cost, convergence at a capital cost, convergence with a reasonable degree of lock-in and proprietariness creeping back into the equation. So, where do we go from here? Well, there is another option here, which is obviously the bottom right-hand corner quadrant, which is, what if we just went out and purchased the cheapest servers, or even the cheapest server components, and built our own servers? What if we went out and bought the cheapest disks, the cheapest white box vanilla networking switches, and we integrated this ourselves and frankly built our own converged systems? And this is not impossible. It is not impossible for an organization to do if they've got a high degree of sophistication, they've got a workforce of some size that really understands this stuff and can dedicate their time to it. And this is what the likes of Google and Amazon and Facebook and really a handful of other companies in the world are doing. But they can do it because they have the size and the scale and frankly the demand that merits building out their infrastructure that way. For most people, it's not a particularly sensible option. Right? It would be a bit like buying a car by going and buying all of the component parts and putting it together. If you went out and bought all of the parts at the lowest possible price, your end result might be a slightly cheaper car. It might not be one you want to drive. It certainly might not be one you want to have break down and then ring the manufacturer and ask for some roadside assistance, because that might become a short conversation. So this is an interesting area. It's an area where, again, some of those larger sort of Web 2.0 companies can go. It's an area where some of the technology providers, the ODMs, people like Supermicro and Lenovo, and people who are providing inexpensive component parts can sit. But it's not an area where the customer can get an end-to-end solution of servers, storage and networking from a single provider with joined up and integrated global support. So obviously only one box left to fill. And what we've done at Dell with Convergence 2.0 is made a conscious effort to take the best learnings from all of these quadrants and pull it together into a best-of-breed set of solutions for our customers. So we are offering, with Convergence 2.0, all of the functionality that you'd find over here. And by the way, over here is where you see solutions such as UCS from Cisco, FlexPod from NetApp and Cisco. It's where you see vBlock from EMC and Cisco. HP has got a solution here. IBM's got a solution here. We've taken the best of the convergence capabilities that those guys have modeled, but in a proprietary fashion, but built that out using industry standard, best of breed technologies to the extent that we can offer that functionality with end-to-end global support and service, but actually the purchase price isn't dramatically dissimilar from going out and buying the sum of the parts. So that is what we're doing with Dell Convergence 2.0, and a really key point to this is that it is open. It is open because we're using the best of breed technologies from Microsoft, from VMware, from Nutanix, from Red Hat, the OpenStack community, and not trying to lock our customers into any one particular platform. And that in itself, transposes down into this architectural model, and I won't spend too much time on this, where going back to what I said at the very beginning, we have a base layer, which is the converged infrastructure, and again, where Dell has got real leadership, because not only do we offer, if you like, that large capability with converged blades, but also our FX, also our Vertex. So we're offering convergence from kind of hyperscale at one end with blades through to under the desk scale with Vertex at the other. On top of that, the widest possible range of software-defined technologies in the industry. And a number of these actually are only available on Dell. Then on top of that, we've taken this model and taken it a level up. We said it's no point in just having fantastic infrastructure for the sake of having fantastic infrastructure. What our customers need to run are real business applications and workloads. So we have gone and engineered a series of blueprints, hence the color blue, a series of blueprints and reference architectures that actually then take this infrastructure and create an end-to-end capability that is optimized for cloud, public cloud or private cloud, that is optimized for a number of different line of business workloads sitting on databases and transactional engines, be it from Oracle, be it from SAP. So we have, for example, an SAP HANA appliance, on Microsoft. And also, we've created engineered solutions that are optimized for the new world of big data with Cloudera and Hadoop. And it is this end-to-end capability that gives our customers Convergence 2.0. And all of the time while we're doing that, we've got firmly in the front of our minds the Dell ethos, which can really be summed up as three words: open, capable, affordable. Everything we do, everything we've done since Michael Dell founded the company 30 years ago has been rooted on those three words and that mantra: open, capable, affordable. We see that shining through in what we're doing in the data center. If we look at the top line here, standards-based, open approach, modular systems, it's all about open architectures, not a lock-in proprietary agenda. If we look at the bottom level here, it's all about extreme capability, flexibility, an end-to-end modern portfolio that goes all the way from servers to storage to networking, either as standalone appliances or integrated appliances. And by putting all of that together, based on standard technologies and doing it in the kind of volume and scale that Dell does globally, as a major organization, we're able to give our customers absolute best value, and hence the final point, affordability. Open, capable, affordable being essential in all that we do. So if I want to just click down a second and just talk about the server storage and networking building blocks that underpin this architecture of Convergence 2.0. It's a known fact that Dell is the #1 server manufacturer in the US. Currently we're the #2 server manufacturer in Europe and indeed in the UK. But actually, if you look at the market share trajectory that comes out from IDC and Gartner and other analysts, what you'll actually see is that Dell, quarter after quarter, is actually gaining in market share in Europe. And my view is that by the end of this year, there's a very good likelihood that Dell will actually not only be the #1 server vendor in the US, but will also be the #1 server vendor in the UK as well. And a lot of that is being driven by some of the innovation I talked about earlier in this presentation in terms of what we're doing in the areas of convergence. If I just talk quickly to storage, when I go out and talk to customers and to our partners, there is a kind of view out there that organizations such as EMC, NetApp are the major players in the storage industry. It actually comes as quite a surprise to them that, and this again is hard data from IDC, if you look at the number of terabytes of storage that was shipped globally last year, Dell was the #1 storage vendor. So we have every right to be very, very proud of our storage portfolio and our storage capabilities. And that's going from very high-performing transactional systems on one end of the scale, going down to price leadership on the other end of the scale. And particularly, we're very, very strong in flash storage, which is increasingly important in converged infrastructure. Finally then, on networking. Now, Dell is #3 globally in networking. And being #3 doesn't sound as good as being #2 or #1. It's worth mentioning that 3 years ago, Dell wasn't even in the networking industry. So we've gone from not being in the industry 3 years later to being #3 in the industry. And if I can stick with the threes for a minute, we're actually growing 3 times faster than the market. We are the fastest growing global networking vendor. And we are giving Cisco an absolute run for their money in many large global organizations on a day-by-day basis. So, servers, storage, networking. We have the capabilities in each of these, but more importantly, how we bring them together in Convergence 2.0. Because of that, we are best positioned to help our customers navigate their way through the intersection of old IT and future IT, because of the engineering work we've put in to developing the best possible converged solutions with the best possible software-defined orchestration sitting on top of that. I've discussed how, with Convergence 2.0, Dell is unashamedly taking the learning that's come out of Convergence 1.0 and marrying it up with our ethos of open systems and value in everything that we do. And consequently, putting all of that together, we're very, very proud of everything we do, specifically because it's anchored on those core fundamental beliefs that have been with us for 30 years of open, capable, affordable. In summary, we are the future-ready enterprise. Thank you very much for your time.